The panther is Florida's official state animal and one of the most endangered mammals in the Southeast. The Florida panther nearly went extinct in the late 90s and has recovered to around 100 panthers today, still far short of biologists' healthy population goal of 240. The current panther population is concentrated in southwest Florida, where this species and 15 other protected animals are currently at risk of losing 150,000 acres of sensitive territory in Eastern Collier County. They need your help to stop a proposed development plan from threatening their survival. Endangered animals like the panther are managed and protected by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, or FWC for short. The FWC is governed by 7 commissioners. One, a rancher named Aliese Priddy, was appointed by Governor Rick Scott in 2012 and is part of a group of 9 landowners who seek to develop a city the size of Washington, D.C., intended to support 329,000 people near Immokalee, Florida, smack in the middle of the Big Cypress Reservation, the Florida Panther National Wildlife Refuge, and other critical panther territory. To build this development, these ranchers have applied to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for a 50-year incidental take permit. An incidental take permit allows protected animals to be harassed, wounded, hunted, trapped, captured, or collected as a consequence of development, or have their habitat so damaged that it kills them. This permit would absolve developers of any responsibility over a 50-year period if the impact of their development harms any of the protected species that reside in this area. U.S. Fish and Wildlife requires the implementation of a habitat conservation plan for this permit. The proposed habitat conservation plan for the Eastern Collier County development fails to protect the panther as outlined by Fish and Wildlife's own rules and does not meet the requirements for approval of this permit. Panther habitats are classified in 3 zones: primary, secondary, and tertiary habitat. The biggest threat to Florida panthers is the loss of their primary habitat, which is essential for survival and recovery of the species. The current development plan includes 25,000 acres to be developed within primary habitat zone, despite recommendations by the rancher's own panther review team, comprised of 6 expert panther biologists, whose 2009 report asserted that development could easily be moved out of primary and into secondary habitat zones. The Florida panther cannot afford any loss of primary habitat to maintain its current population or ever hope for true recovery. Panther corridors in the current development proposal are entirely too small. The plan lists corridors hundreds of feet wide, but when traveling their home range of 200 square miles for males and 75 square miles for females, panthers need corridors over a mile wide. This plan essentially provides sidewalks where the panthers need roads. Another major threat to panthers is motor vehicles. Under the development proposal, nearly 60 miles of new or expanded roadways will be developed, some of which will bring over 60,000 cars to the area daily. The number of cats killed on this road each year will undoubtedly increase with these developments. The development plan theoretically sets aside 100,000 acres for conservation in exchange for intense development on 50,000 acres. But these conservation numbers are deceiving. First, much of the 100,000 acres is already set aside for conservation through local and state protections, such as conservation easements. This effectively double credits these acres in the mitigation process. For instance, Commissioner Priddy herself received $3.75 million in 2015 from the state of Florida to put 1,600 acres of her ranch under a conservation easement. Second, these conserved acres can still be used for activities such as crop cultivation, oil exploration, and even oil drilling, which will devalue the land ecologically and destroy viable habitat. And not just the panthers are at risk with this plan. The rare Florida bonneted bat, the caracara, and even the gopher tortoise are threatened by this development, but protection of their unique habitats are virtually ignored in this plan. The 50-year length of this permit is also unacceptable for the recovery of these endangered species. If populations begin to decline or don't meet recovery goals, it will be nearly impossible to reverse development allowances once this permit is in place. Incidentally, Commissioner Priddy gave a lecture last month at the Free Market Environmentalism Conference entitled Private Landowner, The Next Endangered Species. Commissioner Priddy also proposed changes to the FWC official panther policy in the fall of 2015, suggesting that private landowner concerns should be prioritized over state protection efforts. The new Florida policy effectively contradicts much of what's listed in the proposed Habitat Conservation Plan. The Eastern Collier County Habitat Conservation Plan falls short of fish and wildlife requirements for incidental take permit approval, ignoring opposition of local citizens, accepted scientific findings, and even the recommendations of the rancher's own panther biologists. The fate of the Florida panther depends on the denial of this incidental take permit. Speak up for those who cannot. Submit your comments in opposition to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service by April 25th.